LCARA Ham Radio presents a Time Machine Tuesday vintage video release. Welcome to Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association. You can find us at LCARA.net, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. If you're enjoying the videos we're producing here at LCARA, please help our club out by hitting that subscribe button. Also, give us some feedback on our videos. Click the like button, share with anybody who may find it interesting, and be sure and hit the bell icon to make sure you get notified of the next video release. Good morning, folks. This is Chris, KY4CKP, and this week we just wanted to bring you basically an introduction to a new radio we've got on the bench and that I'm going to be installing into my car to upgrade the current radio I've been using. And so what we have here on the right is the Anytone AT-D578UVIII Pro, which is certainly a mouthful. But we're going to talk just a little bit about some of the basic features of this radio and just some of the reasons why I decided to buy this radio and use it as an upgrade for the mobile radio that I had in my vehicle. And of course, I did the video on installing the mobile HF radio, the Yaesu FT891 with the ATOS 120 alpha antenna. That's working great. Really enjoying having that nice HF mobile. But I've had for even a longer period of time a basically UHF VHF mobile capability in my car, and a lot of us do. But what I had upgraded, and this is in fact the Anytone makes the third mobile radio I've had in my vehicle specifically. But what I've had for a while, here on the left, I've had this Bofang Tech, B-Tech, Bofang Tech. It's a Bofang. It's the 25X4 radio. And it's technically a quad band radio, although one of the bands is used in more of the Asian market specifically. So here in the US, we can be licensed for 3 of the bands. It's a tri-band radio effectively. And of course, 2 meters, 1.25 meters, and then of course 70 centimeters. And we don't see as much happening on 1.25 meters today, the 222, or in the old days 220, until they took a couple of the megahertz away from us. But I was kind of intrigued by it, so I wanted to get a radio that could have that capability. So my original mobile radio was a true dual band, 2 meters, 70 centimeters. And I still have it. I just have it sort of in a kit in case I need to deploy in the field or something. So I've had this Bofang Tech in the car for a little while, and it's a decent little radio. You know, it's inexpensive. It's 25 watt. You know, if you look at its version, 25X4, 25 watts, quad band, tri-band here in the US. And we all know about Bofangs and some of the other Chinese radios, not always the greatest quality. The front ends and various things can get overloaded more easily. But it's worked just fine for me. Is it the greatest radio compared to Yaesu and Kenwood and ICOM and those? No, I'm sure it's not. Of course, when it's a third the price, a quarter the price, that can potentially be a fair trade-off. And so I've had that. It's worked fine. Used it for some of the videos we did, the drive-on antenna mount testing video and some of the others. And whenever I'm going down to work with LCARA and the repeaters and things like that, I can get 25, 30, even more out of it, miles from a repeater with the mag mount antenna, which is a tri-band mag mount antenna on my vehicle. And also in the background, we'll just mention, you can see a couple of handy talkies. Again, a couple of Bofangs. Those are tri-band. Those are tri-band Bofang handy talkies. They do the 1.25 meter band as well. And then I've got the Nagoya NA320 alpha antennas for those, the upgraded antennas, which are also tri-band antennas. So I've got a set of those. So I've had this set up. It's worked fine, but I wanted to at least explore the possibility of an upgrade. I wanted to stay with, and this is part of what the video is about, I wanted to stay with for my criteria. And my criteria is not going to be the same as potentially anyone else's. But I wanted to stay with a tri-band radio. I just like that. I don't use it very often, but I like having the ability. And, 2 meters could be kind of full or busy. 70 might be kind of busy in a given area. Very few folks are going to use 125. So it can almost, right, it can almost be almost a private band for somebody to use. It's not, of course, it's still public. It's just not used very much. So I just liked having that potential capability. So I wanted to stick with that. Now, because of that particular criteria, that really limited the number of radios that I could consider. I looked at, all the main brands. Most of them have some pretty nice mobile radios. ICOM does, Yaesu does. Really looked at the Yaesu FTDM 400. Brian, KY4BDP, did a video on that. He has that radio. Several of our club members have that, and I'm sure several of you do too. Great radio, really nice screen. It's a great radio. But when you want to stick with tri-band, unfortunately these days it's just not as popular a band, and so there's just not a whole lot of options. There is a Baofeng, a different Baofeng actually than this one I have, and there's this 25X4 Baofeng. There was one or two others, and then there was the Anytone. And once I had done a little bit of research and thought about things, I decided to try the Anytone. Now, the Anytone, Chinese radio, but they're known to have pretty decent quality. This little Baofeng tag, now it's a small radio. We've seen a lot of these variations, not much bigger than your hand. I think it's a fairly decent build quality. It's got some decent heft to the casing and metal casing for heat dissipation and things. I've never had a problem with it overheating or anything. It is nice and small. That is kind of a nice thing about it. But the screen is really pretty decent. We've seen that before in some videos. Now, this Anytone, it is quite a bit bigger. Overall, I would say you could consider this radio to be 2 or 2.5 times maybe the size of the Baofeng, but more than 2 times the weight. It feels very high quality in the hand. Very good build quality. The metal casing built-in heatsink, the speaker setup and everything. And we'll see the back end of these here in a minute. So it seems like a very good quality radio. Decent quality audio. Good feature set. The Anytones, the handy talkies, the 678, 878s, good reputation. Several vendors where you can get these. I bought from Bridgecom, and I think I would recommend Bridgecom. They offer U.S. support, and you get some bundles and some educational things when you buy from Bridgecom. So I'd probably buy from them, but you can buy from your vendor of choice, of course. For the 578 though, that we have here, the price was the same no matter where you went. So it wasn't a matter of price whether you looked at, I forget where all it's available. Not everywhere, maybe. It's a little bit newer on the market, but DX Engineering and some of those others that we're used to, it was all the same price. So I went ahead and went with Bridgecom. Now, again, just quickly on the feature set. First, with the Anytone, it's a 50-watt tri-band radio. So it's a 50-watt tri-band radio. The Baofeng Tech is effectively a 25-watt tri-band radio, at least for us here in the U.S. So with the B-Tech, you can power it through a regular 12-volt accessory connection. In fact, here's the cable for it, sort of the classic T connector for some of the mobiles. Classic 12-volt, and I've never blown a fuse or anything running at 25 watts. The nice thing about that, it's very convenient. You don't even have to necessarily run a wire to the battery of your car or necessarily have a dedicated power supply in the vehicle. Again, less expensive costs and things like that. Now, with the Anytone, and almost any, once you kind of step up to those 50-watt radios, although it has a T connector on its pigtail power cord, the extension to that ends in just bare wires, like we're kind of used to with a lot of radios. And it's expected you're either going to run it straight to the battery or have a power supply set up in your vehicle. Of course, I haven't installed it in my vehicle yet. That'll be probably an upcoming video as well. Kind of an ongoing series with this radio as far as using it and testing it out a little bit more, and probably using it with the drive-on antenna to compare it with the Baofeng. Now, when we did that drive-on antenna test, we were using the Baofeng. And it worked fine, and we got a good demonstration of that drive-on antenna and how height affects your ability to communicate. So we'll revisit that from the same location, same distance, with the Anytone once we get that opportunity. So your power requirements are going to be different since you're powering a higher watt unit. Can't necessarily just go through the 12-volt adapter anymore. So that's a little different consideration. And of course, as we just saw, the size. at least half again wider, and again probably 2.5 times the overall size of the Bofang. And it does not, okay, as of the production of this video, does not have a removable or remote faceplate capability. Will that come in a future version? Maybe. It's just not on the market today as of early 2020. I decided not to have that be a deal breaker. The Bofangs don't have a removable faceplate. Okay, so not a big deal there. Feature set, tri-band. The other thing I was looking for, not only more power, although more power only helps somewhat. 25 watts will usually get you where you need to go for a mobile unit. I mean, I can get 30, 40, 50 miles or more, depending on my antenna setup. But more power, just in case it might push through a little bit better, and we'll kind of see that as we do some testing and some future videos with this unit, see if it seems to make any practical difference. But also it has digital. Has a digital mode. That was something else I wanted to look into, was digital modes, and I looked at the Yaesu FT-DM400. Brian has one of those, some of our members do, and we have Yaesu repeaters for the club. C4 FM. I have the FT991 Alpha here at home, which has C4 FM. But where I live in Fayette County, there's not as much of that. I think there's a little bit more DMR activity, and especially in the other club I belong to, which is BARS, Bluegrass Area Radio Society. And so I decided to, A, as a contrast, and then B, maybe as a good excuse on getting a hotspot later on that can, cross mode and things, to get some kind of a digital radio, but I wanted it to be, 50 watts or greater and tri-band. And it really limits your options at that point. So DMR basically became the real option here. So this was the main radio that came up. There weren't that many other radios to consider. One or two others. Not the least expensive. The Anytones, again, they're known to have pretty good quality. Maybe they're not quite as good as some of the Japanese radio brands, but they're pretty good quality. They're, I'd say, at the top of the Chinese radios at a minimum. And so it's about $400. Not inexpensive. I mean, you're right up there with some of the other brands in price, or close enough that you could consider any of them. But again, the biggest disappointment for myself was tri-band. Now, it's not the end of the world. I could have gone with another radio, but I had it. I have some handy talkies that can do it, and I wanted to keep it. So again, it just, for me personally, it limited my options. But it seems like a nice radio. When you look at some of these mobiles, and it varies by brand, but if you look at the Bofang, a decent mic, right? A decent mic. It's got a pretty complete set of buttons. You can do a fair number of features from the mic. No top buttons or anything. Decent quality. Not the best hand mic in the world, but it's worked well for me. And it is backlit. Now, with the Anytone, as with some other radios, it's got a pretty complete hand mic. It does have some up-down buttons on top, and you can get into the menu systems and change your zones, all those good things, change your frequencies and things. Good weight to it, and pretty decent sound quality. It has a speaker in the unit, and it is a speaker mic. You can use one or the other or both. Or, of course, it has a jack for external speaker. So let's take a look at the back of the radios just for a moment. I don't want this video to get too long. It's just a quick introduction on some of the features. So if we look at the back of the Bofang, pretty standard. All right, it's got your main antenna input. It's got a fan, right? Programming, right? It's got a programming jack and a speaker jack. So pretty typical. Decent build quality, I think. It's worked just fine for me. Absolutely no problems. I've used it here at home and use it in the car now for quite a number of months. All right. So you're pretty typical input and output, I think, on that one. Get your programming cable and chirp. You can use chirp and other things to program. It's easy enough to program the Bofangs and some of those radios. Now, if we take a look at the Anytone, it's similar, but just a little different. Let's just turn it around and see if we can set it down for a minute. And we'll take a look at that. So we have our typical antenna input over here on the side. We can see that. Nice big fan. Nice heavy case. Nice heavy aluminum case set up as a heatsink. But when we look over here on this other side, and it may be a little bit tough to see down in there. Let's come a little closer. Hopefully we can see we've got an SMA connector in there. That's because with digital and with this radio, you do have GPS. And the unit does ship with a nice accessory, kind of a pack, and it does come with an external GPS with a cable. I mean, you can see the unboxings and see the information. And then on the side, over here, let's turn this around for a second. On the side, under this flap, you have the micro USB for programming. Just a regular micro USB cable, and it ships with a cable that you can use, but I've used regular cables and they work fine too. So it comes with its own programming cable, it comes with software, comes with the GPS, of course the mounting bracket and hardware for that. So it comes with a nice set of accessories really right out off the bat. Now programming, and we did the first video to cover one aspect of programming DMR. DMR, or just digital radio, of really any flavor, is very different. You'll probably have noticed if you've looked at digital at all. You know, Chirp, RT Systems, they don't really get into that much yet. I think they're starting to, maybe with some DStar or something, but with DStar and System Fusion and DMR and 25. And first of all, there's a number of different types of digital, and different manufacturers support different capabilities there. And then of course we have some hotspots that can cross mode and things. So from a programming standpoint, we're still a little bit in the Wild West for these units. And that's certainly true for the Anytone. The program, the software that comes with it is not bad. It looks vaguely similar to Chirp or RT Systems. I have both of those, and those are nice to use. But it's just not as polished, and you can't do some of the things we're used to doing with them. I hope that it is still under development. The newest version for this radio came out January this year. It's already the third version. And so I know a lot of us are hoping that they will kind of smooth it out, make it a little bit easier. There's just a lot to think about with digital radio of any flavor, and DMR is no different. So this isn't about programming and that stuff. We may try to get into that later, especially if the software matures a little bit. But I just want to compare this. So when you look at these, the big differences, if you were thinking about an upgrade, more power, which may or may not make a practical difference. It really kind of depends, especially on antennas and things. Tri-band. Of course, I'm going from a tri-band to a tri-band. It has digital capability, which I do want to get into and play with more. It has GPS for APRS and those kinds of things, and I haven't really looked at those yet, so I may want to take a look at those and see about that. And maybe a little better build quality, maybe a little better front end and some things like that. Further testing is going to hopefully help us figure that out over the coming weeks and months, especially as things eventually start getting a little bit more back to normal compared to how they are right now. So it's not that it's different. You have dual receive and send cross band. It has cross band capability. So it does have independent volume knobs, some channels and you know, effectively memories and things. And you can program these buttons. I'm not trying to go over everything. I mostly just want to go over some of the things I was thinking about as far as why did I want to look at upgrading, you know, especially spending a good chunk of money. Stay tri-band, get into more power, get into digital, and maybe a little higher quality overall unit. Now, again, it's a lot bigger. It doesn't have a remote head, so I'm going to have to rearrange how I've installed things in the vehicle, but that's okay. I think I can get that figured out. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to go over some of the initial features. Quick look at the units. There's plenty of videos starting to come out on this this radio. This will be kind of somewhat of an ongoing series, though. We're going to get it installed in the car. We're going to be using it, retesting the drive-on antenna mount, so we can compare these two units. Might as well, right, since we have an easy opportunity to do that, and probably some other things. So that's going to wrap it up for now. This is Chris, KY4CKP 73.